Welcome everyone to November Product Tank. Thanks for everyone joining online and anyone who indeed watches the recording afterwards. We're really excited to have Georgia here from Revolut. Georgia and I have been friends for a little while now, and when I heard that she was joining Revolut, I was super excited. I think I've been a mega fan of Revolut since probably day one when I lived in England. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say tonight, and excited to everyone else to hear more about Revolut and launching in New Zealand. Thank you so much for coming. I'll hand over to you, and we'll do some questions at the end as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, cool.
Beautiful. Cool.
Thanks, Georgia.
Well, thank you for having me. Kia ora, everybody. I'm Georgia. I think first of all, massive thank you, Chelsea and the team for organising today, and Story Park for having us. So it's great to be here, and I hope everyone takes away like a little bit of value out of tonight's discussions. So let me just double check that this is going. Yeah, nice. Right, cool. Perfect. So yeah, as Chelsea mentioned, I'm from Revolut, and if you haven't heard of us before, we are like a neo payments bank startup that started over in London, and it's just been growing from strength to strength ever since. I'm going to touch a little bit on my background and Revolut's background a bit as part of our discussion this evening. And then from there, we're going to talk around localization and finding product market fit, and how Revolut has done that from strength to strength across the globe. The last bit that we're going to talk about, Chelsea and I thought it would also be worth touching on the transition from product roles into senior leadership, and just how that story has gone for myself and for others around me in the product space. And then, yes, of course, we'll jump into questions at the end, and you're welcome to ask anything about myself, my journey, and Revolut. Cool. Okay, so as I said, I'm Georgia. Revolut started in 2015 over in London. Our two founders, Nick and Vlad, spun it up, and we're now live in over 14 markets, which is awesome. They have been very much driven by the idea of offering banking and payments in a much more easier and seamless way, and making it accessible to everybody, no matter what corner of the globe you're in. And if I think back to myself and my journey, I've been working in product for coming on 9 years now. My product journey started at Kiwibank. And ever since then, I've definitely been on the mission of how do we just help people bank better. I've worked in roles not just in New Zealand, also in Australia, and a little bit in America, mostly in banking, fintech, finance, but also with some consultancy firms, government, and what have you. But over the last 5 years, I've realized that my roots come back to fintech, and what I get up out of bed every morning to do is help people bank better and just manage their finances better. I'm a firm believer that it shouldn't be just because your uncle's in banking that you know how to get a good interest rate. And so how do we bring those experiences through product to everybody, no matter what corner of the globe you're in? So when the opportunity came up at Revolut, it was a very nice fit. And I was very excited to be on the same mission as Nick and Vlad and the rest of the team. Yes. So, as I said, our global vision really resonated well. I'm not sure if I'm still on the screen. There we go. Vision really resonated, and the accessibility side of growing payments and banking is something that's really important to myself and to our founders and everybody at Revolut. If we think about the last 4 years of growth, it's been particularly focused in the APAC region, which is what eventually brought us to New Zealand in July this year. So we're still fresh, still new on the scene. We've got a really solid roadmap that we're excited to be building out for the years to come. And again, like I said, accessibility is a really big focus. And so not only do we have the Revolut app, but we also have the Lite app. And this is for areas where, we might not notice there is a strong market need for all of our features. There might be some small Pacific Islands who don't necessarily need crypto or what have you. Depending on the market needs, we can tailor our app and our offering and our experience to meet those needs. So yeah, really excited to be here. We've got lots on the horizon in terms of India and what have you, but we can talk more about how we've gone from market to market as part of our localization discussion. So like I said, to talk about the app more so, where the vision is to be building a super app. We can hold and manage everything financial under one roof or one app. We offer not only retail banking accounts, but also mortgages overseas and business banking accounts and what have you. But each area is very market driven, which we can talk more on soon. So now we're at the point where we're processing over 500 million transactions per month. Like I said, we're live in over 40 markets. There's over 7,000 Revoluters or employees. And we're onboarding over 1 million customers a month, which is just huge. And we still very much operate like a startup. So it is a real fun experience, and everybody is very much in the trenches and on the bus together. When we were looking at APAC and New Zealand in particular, I don't think it comes as a shock to anybody, but there's not a whole lot of innovation in the payments and banking space here. And so it was very recognised that there's a genuine market need for Kiwis, and Revolut could help to solve that for New Zealanders. And that was a huge, huge driver for Revolut tackling New Zealand when it did. Yes, our main offering or our first go-to-market is foreign exchange and overseas payments. But there's a whole lot of other features and offerings that we've got across the globe as well, like I've mentioned, business banking and what have you. If we think about the cross-border payments that Kiwis manage, in 2022, there was over $1.42 million spent in just foreign exchange fees alone. And if you transferred those with Revolut at the right time, that could have been zero. So right now there's a huge markup on foreign exchange, and if you think about families transferring money home and what have you, it is super unnecessary, and we're bringing a proposition to market to help with that. The innovation and payments features is another area that we're really excited to be pushing on in New Zealand and hopefully encouraging more and more innovation in this space. There's a lot with cards, fraud controls and what have you that we're really excited to be bringing to market, and just really want to solve a genuine need for New Zealanders. Cool. So when I was working in product and various other roles, I'd definitely heard about Revolut. I'd never used it, but you'd hear about it when you're traveling and what have you, and I was always super impressed by the fact that they had managed to scale to 40 markets. Like that, I thought that was just phenomenal, especially when it comes to banking and payments and the complexities of legislation and all of the requirements and what have you. So from a product perspective, I really admired their ability to obviously nail product market fit time and time again. And that was one of the things that really attracted me to Revolut in the beginning. Since I joined earlier this year, I've got to learn a lot more about how they've done that and what the Revolut framework and approach to localization is. And I'll be walking you through that today and sharing that with you. The first thing, I think, this goes without saying, no matter what we're doing, whether we're localizing overseas or at home, is strategy. And this is like the first pillar of Revolut's framework that we've got to make sure we nail. So this is, I talked about the vision at the beginning, and that's really prevalent in everything that we do at Revolut. Like that's constantly talked about on the daily, and that filters down into our strategic objectives. So not only do we have the group strategy, but each group strategy lends into each market strategy, which lends into the strategic objectives, which is directly our roadmap. And that is talked about constantly. If we're building something or suggest building something, it's how does that fit into the strategic plan? How is that fitting into the roadmap? What's that doing for the vision? And everybody's expected to be able to tell that narrative time and time again. So everyone's really, really focused on delivering the strategy. So that's definitely at the heart of everything we do and step one. Local leadership. So this is how I exist at Revolut, realistically. And Revolut have made sure that in each market they expand to, they keep local leadership on the ground who understand the market and build empathy with their customers. Super important that everybody understands like the nuances. Something that we had with launching was we're thinking of putting posters up at a university in Auckland. And the call to action was a big QR code. And I was like, hold on, like Kiwis don't necessarily have all of the data in the world compared to other markets. This isn't going to work. And that was a classic, like that all of those little decisions, which seemed minor at the time, really amount to the importance of having local people that understand and empathize with the whole customer experience on the ground. That kind of lends itself to the legislation. This is probably more relevant for definitely finance and banking and payments, but understanding the local legislation and the requirements and how you can use that and play to that and make sure that that's an enabler as you grow has been super important. And I think it's great to see Revolut don't really shy away from it. It's built into our strategy. It's built into our planning, our roadmaps and everything. So nothing comes as a surprise as we try to scale. My favorite is product. So in terms of localizing the product, this is where the rubber hits the road. It's what are we doing to make sure that the product really speaks to people locally. It's not copying and paste what's obviously worked really well in London and just assuming that it's going to fly in NZ, because that's not the case. At the end of the day, we're building a product for Kiwis, and that needs to be a part of our roadmap, that needs to be part of our UI, that needs to be part of our go-to-market, and it all has to roll up in together. So product has been super important. An example of this would be we have a global vendor for KYC, which is the identification verification workflow that you have to go through when you're applying for a bank or payments, what have you. Our global vendor, it's mostly copy and paste overseas in terms of you just need to work on their legislation, make sure it requires that, you meet those requirements. But for New Zealand, when we were going through testing, we made sure we were putting people through with Te Moko to make sure that we're not just going to automatically reject them for tampering with their identity. And so it's nuances like that where you've got to make sure you're keeping it local, you understand the needs, and you're really designing for the customers at heart. But yeah, that's one of many. There's lots of others in terms of, another one was cards actually. The go-to-market product suite was fantastic. Like we had our foreign exchange, peer-to-peer payments, split bills, everything was instant. And that was really cool first for NZ. And then we've actually got this suite of card controls, which is around security and fraud. And that's really important to NZ at the moment. Let's delay ever so slightly and make sure that that is part of the suite when we go live. So things like if my phone is not within I think it's 200 meter radius of the ATM, I'm not going to be able to withdraw cash. I can turn that on or off. There's hiding the card details on the screen, checking your PIN in the app. There's contactless on and off, online payments on and off, disposable cards so that if you're buying from maybe a slightly dodgy website, you're only using the card numbers once. Things like that. And we knew fraud was really, really important to Kiwis at the moment. We're getting hammered with it here. So let's go live with that from the beginning. And then you scale and grow. So the idea is we really nail the local product, understand we've reached that product market fit, and then we continue to invest and grow the product over time. Cool. So I understand international localizing a product is probably a nuance for an organization like Revolut, but it's not necessarily that relevant for Kiwis building products in Aotearoa for other Kiwis. So I just want to kind of call out and make it really known that that framework also applies locally. Strategy is always important, and it should always be at the heart of what you do. It doesn't need to just be a plan that sits in the drawer and gathers dust. It can really help to direct your product builds and development and make sure you're setting your sights and hitting the goals that you need to hit. Local leadership is the same as like a very good product manager, essentially. Having the empathy for your customers, knowing exactly how they operate, like where the Domino's app is where are all the different scenarios where customers are going to be starting to order their pizza. Are they on their way home? Are they sitting on the couch? But, the product managers need to have that in-depth empathy for customers locally. Legislation is always important in payments and energy or what have you. But again, like if you've got the local leadership, you should be knowing how to play for that. And also with the teammates that you've got alongside you. Product, finding your product market fit, which we can talk more on in a second. But it's so important that you've nailed and you're understanding you're meeting a customer need in that market before you go and scale. There's so many that will start to try and grow and start to run before they can walk. Like you need to know that you're actually solving for a customer problem before you go and expand and invest too much. And then scale and grow, always applicable. Yeah, so this has actually stuck with me since Chelsea and I went on our course where we met, where we went on a course with Marty Kagan, like the king of product, for those of you who have been involved or read his books, but would definitely recommend the course. That's where I met Chelsea, and something we talked about was product market fit. And we're talking around how do you actually measure that and what does that mean? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And we were talking about Mark Andreessen's quotes and how he kind of kicked off the discussion around product market fit. If you think, I think he talks about it, and it definitely resonated with me when you think about other products. And there's that whole the market always wins concept. So you've got a lousy team, a great market, the market will win. It will probably fly. If you've got a lousy market but a great team, the market still wins. The product's not going to fly. But then if you get a great team and a great market, great things happen. And I think that really speaks to the fact that you've got to understand that customer problem and then go from there. Something that we learned with Marty was around how do you measure product market fit and what does that look like? Obviously, it's something that is more intuitive and you feel it, when you're getting product market fit. You've got customers onboarding, you've got sales teams getting stressed out, you've got everything's coming at you all at once. And you also know when a company's not really hitting product market fit, things are slow, struggling for money and what have you, and onboarding rates are slower. Marty taught us that a good benchmark, and I think it's mentioned in his books actually as well, is when you're talking to your customers, do at least 40% of them say that they couldn't live without your product. And that's quite a emotive statement, couldn't live without your product. But I think it's a great benchmark, and why not start talking about it, and why not try and benchmark ourselves for that? So something to build on Revolut's localization strategy that I've been introducing is the survey. Surveys, they've got their biases, and app, it's always hard to judge what the uptake is going to be like. But 2 weeks ago, we've added this in for the New Zealand app, and we're excited to see where it goes. So the 5 questions, that we're asking as part of this, most important is obviously how do you feel if you could no longer use Revolut? But then we've also got some fringe questions as well, just so we can help together some more insights around product roadmap and how we can use their language into our go-to-market strategy as well. So like I said, we only just launched it. I was hoping I was going to be able to share some data with you, but I don't have it yet. But I'm also keen to hear, has anybody else in the audience tried to measure something similar, has tried to measure product market fit for that matter, or had any of these types of surveys work well. I think it can be hard to drive engagement at times, but
We at Storypark, we do that in a variety of ways. We also do it with competitors' customers as well, about how different would they be, to measure their experience.
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And does that help to drive insights?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so.
That's awesome.
I'm doing customer research for tech business in town, and the question, how you describe this business to a friend, has spurned up all of these perceptions about their organization that they had no idea. No idea, and they were really, really clear that we are the market leader, we're great, we're dominating, and actually they are seen as a piece of the infrastructure. And yeah, I'm finding that this complete picture that you're showing here is really, really powerful. It's like, how do we get past that perception to be more than just, we're just part of the furniture? So yeah, that's a really powerful question for sure.
Yeah. I think that I'm very excited to see obviously problems solved for you, like what does it actually help? And then the language, because I want to hear the words that they're using about Revolut. Like, is it what we think it is? And if we're using X things to describe us in market, is that going to resonate with people? Is that what they see us as? So yeah, I'm excited to start getting more data for this. And yeah, you're welcome to use a similar survey. I'm excited to have that benchmark. And I think that the one thing that Marty left us with is, yes, you can hit 40% one day, and that's fantastic. But even if you do, like, that's your new benchmark, and you've got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and make sure you're always solving for that problem. The reason 40% was spun up is because in all of the startups and anything coming out of Silicon Valley that he'd seen, typically anything that didn't hit 40%, and then they started investing too much or building too many features before they'd actually nailed the customer problem, they often didn't succeed, and they no longer exist. So that 40% mark was that threshold where they started to see, okay, these tech companies have built software, they're doing well, solving for a problem, and now they can grow from there. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that one takes us.
Could you just explain 40%? Just really recap again? Like, what measuring?
So how many? Sorry.
I have one question. It's like
this one.
Over a threshold. Is it like 40% over a certain threshold? Or
yeah. So if we have, scale of like very dissatisfied, neutral.
And is it weighted? Is it just that one question that you're measuring at 40%, or is it like those 5 questions?
Correct. Yeah. So the product market fit benchmark is totally just this question. And then these are fringe, like, hey, I've got your attention. I would love to know some other things. Yeah, but that's definitely just the benchmark. And the 40% was 40% that said once you'd hit 40% of customers couldn't live without your product, then you've got it.
Is that very or extremely dissatisfied? Or
yeah, it was both. Like, if there's a scale of 1 to 5, 4 and 5, 40% and above, you've done well. Yeah. No, good clarifying question. Yeah.
Does this mean that across all Revolut, when you deploy into a new marketplace, and that's the threshold you're looking to go and achieve?
This is what we're using in New Zealand, and if this is what works, if this mirrors what we've seen in terms of when we invest more into marketing and what have you, and those mirror up, then yeah, we'll start to deploy it to other entities as well. But so far, we're just starting with NZ.
Oh, cool. So
Yeah, we'll be the beta group.
So theoretically, if you didn't make the 40%, you'd go back and say, something is wrong with the product, or you try to educate the market or go out on a campaign.
Yeah, I'd probably seek to understand a bit more. So I'd start to do more and more customer research, really ramp that up, talk to more friends and family, talk to all of you, and ask what's not hitting the mark or what you expected of Revolut versus what it actually is, and get to understand that. And then from there, tailor, okay, we need to make sure that for Kiwis, these products are actually more important. These guys aren't actually interested in card controls or fraud. They actually want this shiny, sexy stuff like crypto. So how do we understand the market that Revolut's gravitated in NZ and then deliver for them rather than copy and paste from the UK? Yeah.
So it's not like if you don't hit it, pack up and go home.
No,
It's let's figure it out and then
Yeah.
get to a certain point.
Exactly.
So you can hit it.
exactly. Yeah. And if I was like a startup, not, Revolut's obviously quite established. If I was a startup, I'd also be thinking, okay, are we in the right market? Like, are we in the right vertical? Are we actually plugging a problem here? Does the problem exist? What's our macro market looking like, and how do we change tack strategically if we couldn't get the insights that we needed? Yeah.
And what does like product market fit stage look like in terms of resourcing compared to scale up? I think scale up is kind of like, there's a certain limit, but I imagine it just keeps going. But in terms of like at the moment, how much like engineering resource or how much kind of 7,500 staff, how much goes into like product market fit phase for Revolut?
It's a great question. And very hard to answer. So there's.
Do you want to repeat the question a little bit?
Yes, sure. Sorry. The question was, how does resourcing mirror product market fit? And at what point would we start to move and scale more and more according to how we're succeeding on our product market fit measure? Is that right?
Yeah, basically, I mean,
Yeah.
imagine you turn on sales and marketing. Do
Yes.
you do any brand building before product market fit? And then you scale up sales and marketing once you hit the product market fit? And then how much resourcing in terms of, like, how much resource do you get to get product market fit in New Zealand? Like, how many, like, tangibly, how much resources does the company give you
Yeah.
to get product market fit?
Yeah, no, great question. First, so in terms of marketing, to be honest, like it's probably my biggest bugbear. It's this whole chicken and egg. Like we've got no proof, so we're not going to invest in marketing, but we need to invest in marketing so that people know who we are. And so it's really finding the balance on how we can really prove that if we're doing any marketing or go-to-market activities, we can hit the ROI and more. So that's the stage we're in at the moment. Like we have to have very robust ROI proof in the pudding around marketing and go-to-market before we get a whole lot of support in that space. So it's very much like a poor startup vibe at the moment. In terms of resourcing, it's a tricky question to answer because we've got our local entity, which is 2 of us, and then we've got 48 in Australia that we leverage, and we've got like shared services agreements and what have you, so that they help us build our product. But all engineering and design is based in London, and so it's kind of spun up. If we've got a great business case, we tell the story, we sell the dream for NZ, and we get commitment that we're going to build, say, joint accounts or something. Then our New Zealand team become local product owners and BAs and input into that squad for that time. We spin up joint accounts and we go to the next thing. So we use a bunch of people from a bunch of different teams. But yeah, as we grow and as we prove ourselves with our product market fit benchmarks, then we will have more resource and we'll be able to scale and grow the team locally as well.
So what's your bet for New Zealand? Like, what's not guaranteed to be true that you're betting on that makes you believe you'll succeed to get people off traditional banks or whatever it is you're hoping to achieve?
That's a great question. I think it's the everyday payment space. I think Revolut has very much proven themselves in FX and the fees, but everyday payments is less so.
Is this payments between currencies that sort of payment?
Sorry, I'm going down to the dairy.
Like,
I'm transferring you money.
Right.
We're going out for dinner, we'll split the bill. It's those everyday payment moments that we've nailed in Europe markets, and we want to see that done here as well.
And what's the pain that New Zealanders are feeling that you'll ease for them?
There's a lot in terms of instant payments, splitting bills, budgeting and analytics is a big one as well. It was another one that we pulled into our go-to-market for New Zealand and our MVP. One house where you can manage all of your budgeting and analytics. You're not having your app, and then you've got your PFM on the side or your Excel sheet at home or what have you. It's all in that one space, and helping to people just spend smarter and save smarter is what we're really, really after, and we want to help bring that all into the one roof and as fast as possible with instant payments. So hopefully we press on that over time. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Okay. So we can talk a bit more about Revolut and the product and what have you in a minute, but Chelsea and I also thought it'd be worth sharing a few of my insights in moving from product leadership roles to more senior leadership roles. A bit of context is that before my role at Revolut, I was also at a fintech in Australia called Lendi. We're digitizing the mortgage process end to end. And there we had 4 very hands-on founders who were awesome to work with. They all had different areas of the business and skill sets that they honed in on. And so they kind of formed the senior leadership team formally. So we didn't really have a formal ExCo or LT or anything like that. And a few of us would be brought in and were made kind of like that second tier senior leadership team. And we'd be brought in for specific strategic projects and what have you over time. And that was my, I guess, more first official taste of senior leadership when we're starting to look at bigger moves. And when I reflect on my time there and now at Revolut more formally, there's a lot of areas of product that I think have helped make that transition a lot more seamless than when I look at potential other people or talk to friends and colleagues around their transition coming from other backgrounds. So I thought I'd share with you what I found the most helpful. So the first is that we're problem solvers. So this has proven so helpful time and time again, in that we're not just sitting around a table trying to come up with a great solution. We're sitting there digging deep on what we can help from a product background, drive that conversation to dig deep on why is this happening, but why is that happening, really understand the root cause. Then it transpires into opportunities as well. So how do we look wide, and how do we make sure that we're ticking all the boxes and we're uncovering all the potential opportunities before we start to go down a route for a solution? And then obviously we're also thinking about like DVF and what have you. How do we make sure that something is hitting the mark in terms of viability, usability? We're not coming up with great ideas. They're usable and realistic. And at the end of the day, like if we're nailing our problem solving skills as well, and we're driving towards product performance, that is the equivalent, just on a smaller scale, of overarching business performance as well. So when we're looking at business units and how can we help them succeed, if we come back to what we've managed and worked in product space, it transpires really seamlessly. The second area is storytellers. So this one is obviously super important. We're telling stories to our engineers, to our designers, to our testers, to our senior leadership teams when we're in product and what have you, and we're trying to get everybody on board and understand the vision. Because most of the time we're trying to get buy-in for something that doesn't exist yet, right? And so we've gotten good at storytelling in the world of product. We've got an intention and there's an obstacle and you're taking people on the journey and you sell them the dream. The same applies at senior leadership level, really. I was just saying to Anand earlier, we launched New Zealand at the same time as we launched Brazil. And so if you think about the stories I have to tell to get engineering design resource for New Zealand, when our population is 5 million, it's a big story. And it's a really important one, nonetheless. Like we've got a small market, but we've got huge market opportunity. So storytelling is another one which I found very helpful in the transition. The third one is data, and these are in no particular order, by the way. Data. So we're very comfortable with data. We all know how our funnel is performing this morning versus yesterday, how many customers have converted, what was the loading time, where was an outage. We should know all of that. That's our bread and butter and product, right? You kind of just level it up to the overarching P&L, and you're understanding not only how the product is performing on the day-to-day, but how is that transpiring to your gross margin? What's your revenue per user looking like? How many people converted in the last 14 days versus 28 days okay, cool, we've got a problem with the funnel. It's essentially, like I was saying, product performance, similar to overarching business performance as well. We're great at saying no. We're good at prioritizing. Coming back to that strategy as the first step in the localization framework. We know what is going to help us reach our goals, and we know what is a distraction. Sometimes we're taking bets, but we stand by our guns and we know when we need to say no. And I think this one is a really good, Shreyas Joshi is a great guy. If you don't follow him, I'd definitely recommend having a look on his LinkedIn and blogs and podcasts he's done and what have you. But I think the other thing I wanted to call out is like the product mindset is not something that's very easily taught quickly. And I think that's a strength that we would all have in this room, coming from a product background. Project thinking is definitely not obsolete. There's still a space for that. And I know some product people don't necessarily like that, but I feel like it's got its game and it's got its place in the world at some points in time. But the product mindset is a honed craft over years, and I think that's so important to call out. And it's that holistic thinking, digging deep on the customer, understanding the why, and really bringing that to your decision making and everyday leadership, which I think really helps. So overall, my 2 cents is if you're ever thinking about a senior leadership role, or you want to get more involved in more of those strategic discussions, and you're coming from a product background, I'd totally back you to take that leap. I think these are some of the skills which I'd recommend honing in on and making sure that, you brush up on. And if you're already a senior leader, like these are the ones important that I'll definitely keep honing and practicing and trying to improve on over time. So I definitely just recommend having a little reflection on some of those. And is there anybody in the room who might be able to chip into that as well? Are there any areas that you think have been important in your journeys that maybe I haven't called out?
Or maybe stakeholder management,
Yeah,
because that's people skills.
definitely. Like that influencing side. Yeah, totally. Any others? Cool. Okay. Well, sit on that thought, and if you've got any others, feel free to raise them. But I'm keen to open up now to any questions that you've got. We've touched on localization and how Revolut has scaled across the globe. We've talked about transition from product. And yeah, keen to open the floor if anybody's got any questions, and online.
So I have a question about the product market fit.
Yes.
Tell us about market. What is the target market that you've got using?
That's a great
obviously-
question.
Yeah.
It's anybody who's open to managing their everyday payments and banking online, realistically. We've gone to market with a very wide brush. We haven't done a lot of market activity that a lot of you might not have even seen. A lot of it was pretty low key, to be honest. We're keen to see where we gain traction and then go to them. We know we've kind of got this bookshelf of features. We know what's worked well in other markets. Typically, people with young first jobs, like I want to say young, but the bracket's quite broad. It's 18 to 55-year-olds who's worked quite well. Very broad. But not in New Zealand. We're going to hone that down and really focus in on them. Yeah. And then for each product vertical that we release over time, they'll have their own target markets that we'll go after as well. But we're going to be quite market-led in both our roadmap as well. And that if we see a need for customers in X, then and we can help fill that gap, we'll go there. Yeah.
Do you have any product demo that we can see?
Oh, that's a great question. I definitely should have prepared that. We can hang out on my app afterwards. Yeah. Unfortunately, no. But if you go onto the website online, you can get a good feel for it.
I have a question. I'm super curious how Revolut does roadmaps. What levels of roadmaps? What's
Yeah.
on the roadmap? I'm not talking about like tell me the features of things that are on
No,
the roadmap.
yeah,
but,
how do we do it?
What are we talking about here?
It's I've never seen anything like it, to be honest. It's something. The use of data is what really attracted me to Revolut as well. I think a lot of people talk about being into data, but actually walking the walk and investing in data tools is a whole nother story. So when the opportunity came up and I was talking to them, I actually asked them to share with me how they use data in their day-to-day. And I talked to two different people who I pointed this on, and both of them immediately just shared their tabs. And like 50 of them were all these dashboards of how the product was performing at any given time, how that had impacted our gross margin, revenue per user at any point of the day. And it's expected that no matter what role you're in, you know what's gone on overnight and how that's impacted customers' experience, NPS, and the bottom line. So that even our like chat agents will be on the dashboards, everybody is on the dashboards. And so what you see in our roadmaps is that all transpires. So we've got our like numbers, I guess, that we need to hit over the 5-year period. And then that trickles down into entities. And then that trickles down into like a macro competitive analysis.
When you say entity, is that like a country?
Sorry, countries.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. And so then we'd pair like the New Zealand goals with the New Zealand macro analysis, find the gaps for customers, and then pick off like, okay, we hypothesize based on, it is pretty rough data, but there's X customers who need X products, credit cards, for instance, like what that market opportunity would be, how would that help us with our P&L and reach our goals, and then that would transpire into our roadmaps. It's not as team-led as I would like, to be honest.
So when you're like saying you're finding the gaps and then going to the next level, does that mean that there's like could I translate a gap to a potential problem or a potential opportunity, and then there's an opportunity roadmap or a problem roadmap, and then
it's a list of problems with the hypothesized value and how that will help reach our strategic goal.
And then that goes into
And then that goes in.
actual specifics.
But let me specify, that's how it works for us locally who don't have engineers and designers. So globally, when we have, like we've got a squad that look after cards, we've got a squad that looks after business, we've got a squad that looks after mortgages, we've got a squad that looks after joint accounts. Like all of those teams are crowdsourcing customer problems at a product level from around the world, and then they build the next latest and greatest iteration for business accounts, and then we'll localize it. So they're the ones who'd hold the product roadmap in the true sense of the form.
And they prioritize that
Yeah.
for the whole world that you're working on. How does the New Zealand gonna have a voice?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Exactly.
Because I didn't you did mention that you don't have your own engineering resources. So basically you have to kind of fight for them to, if you are to make any change, like with the face scanning that you mentioned.
Yeah.
You'll have to fight for that resource.
Correct.
How do you make your voice heard?
It's honest storytelling. It's a strong business case, showing the market opportunity and telling like the customer pain is, and that is heard and that is looked after and that is nurtured in terms of the product roadmap. Everybody's got an input to their roadmaps. Like if I have this new idea that doesn't exist for business accounts anywhere in the world and Revolut's going to be the first to do it, we'll talk about it and they'll totally listen. Like it's a very collaborative relationship. Yeah.
Is there ever a higher weighting put to a new market for the sake of trying to drive growth and responsiveness in that first 6-12 months?
Yeah. Each engineering team has X percent of their capacity each quarter carved out to expansion globally. Yeah.
So is this one like a bank or is that different from a bank?
Look, legally, I'm not allowed to say bank. However, payments. It's a payments innovator. Is what I believe it is. So we are supervised from an AML perspective under DIA. And so they're our AML supervisor. But in New Zealand, there's different like registration models that we've got available to us. But in New Zealand, you're not technically a bank until you offer mortgages. So we're not there yet at a very high level.
So are you promoting yourselves as an alternative to a bank?
Correct. We would never use bank in our go-to-market strategy.
Alternative to a bank.
Yeah. Yeah, we're here to help with your payments, really, at the moment.
So what's the value proposition? Why? And I've used it in London. The FX Start School, the Crypto Start School. In New Zealand, if I'm a private person or I'm just a small business, I guess, how do you sell it to me? Why would I stop my Kiwibank account and switch to you?
Well, I do love Kiwibank.
Or another bank.
No, that's okay. You should come to Revolut. It's one app, all things money. So you're not having to use Kiwibank and then multiple other apps to track your spending. And right now, if you transferred from Kiwibank, your FX is going to be more expensive. You'd use Kiwibank for X products, but not the peripheral. And that could be your core or what have you. But at Revolut, our goal is to be like one app, all things money. So you can manage not only the core, but also have the peripherals and the features and innovations as well along the side.
So you've got a menu of peripheral products that have been localized or not, but they're available on the New Zealand flavor. And that enough of those you think are going to be useful for me to be on the Kiwibank.
Yeah, give us, we're very early stage, but yes, we've got a very solid roadmap, very exciting roadmap.
Right.
So far we've launched with foreign exchange, split bills, peer-to-peer payments, all of that's instant. A lot of card controls for security and fraud, budgeting and analytics. Soon we're releasing crypto, which Kiwibank definitely can't do. So yeah, we've got a really solid roadmap coming out and very excited.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to ask is what's your selling point and why do you think compared to the other competitors on the market, what's your advantage?
Like,
the
yeah.
advantage like the other company cannot compete with.
So it's a sales pitch.
I'm not in sales.
Try to get more customers.
It's honestly, it's like the real-time payments right now in foreign exchange. So right now, if you wanted to transfer money to your mate in London, you can get it to him this second. Or like your kid's traveling overseas, you want to make sure she's got enough money, or she's run out of money, she's trying to top up a train card, you can transfer that to her straight away. Or you're buying something off Trade Me and you don't trust the dude, can you transfer me right now? It's going to come through. It's a lot more secure. In terms of that way, like you can match the name to the payments and what have you. It's all instant. And there's a lot more card control. So we've captured a lot of the market in terms of like, I'm wary about purchasing things online, or I'm worried about my fraud cards getting scammed, what have you, and they purely just use our disposable cards. So it's a one-time use for the card numbers and then it's disposed of. So you can pick and choose what you come to us for. In a few weeks, there'll be crypto guys coming to us, so crypto guys and girls. So yeah, it's a range of things, but one app, all things money is our tagline.
So it sounds like the market you're going for is quite specific then, because if you're not doing FX, if you don't care about crypto, if all you have is a current account when you buy groceries, maybe there's not that much benefit.
Correct.
So you're looking for quite a dynamic person who does lots of financial transactions and payments.
Yeah.
Is that the
It's
market?
like the traveler, tech savvy,
Yeah.
comfortable doing everything over an app. We don't have a call center, so like comfortable with getting in like chat help if you're ever in trouble. It's really that like tech savvy.
Or the RSE worker who's sending money back to the
Yes.
islands to pay. Yeah.
Exactly, which we really want to help and tap into. Yeah.
Do you have solutions here?
Sorry.
Just shout out.
So I'm just wondering about kind of your team's journey opening up in New Zealand, and your story sounds to me quite similar to when Sharesies was launching, and their experience was kind of from my perspective, who like I wanted to get into investing, but when I looked in New Zealand, it was like, do you have $10,000 in cash? No? Okay, sorry, you can't be an investor. I felt like what GSAs had to do at the beginning was like really ramp up a lot of education. To kind of prove being like, hey, you can actually be an investor with your cash.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, is that something that's going to be part of your strategy in New Zealand to kind of really push out like education on like saving and budgeting and all of your kind of analytics tools or other features that you have? Because New Zealand's financial apps, existing ones, it's just like
figure it out.
Extremely simple.
Yeah, no, totally. And like coming back to the vision, it is around making it all accessible for everybody. Like crypto, typically very intimidating for 90% of the market. But to your point, like the other thing we're rolling out with it is learning it. So complete this course, you're going to earn some coins and you can spend that on the platform. But making, like embedding education and making it so much more accessible and less intimidating is a really, really big focus for us. And eventually when we start to launch kids accounts, that's going to be one that we're really, really hot on, because we can make it fun, we can gamify it, and we can wrap a lot of education around it and help Kiwis like put the right step forward. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about your roadmaps? So there's a lot of great stuff coming up. Do you communicate this roadmaps more publicly to your customers on your website?
No, we honestly, if I pretend I'm George, well not pretend, if I'm talking to you as Georgia right now and not necessarily from Revolut, if you look at any of the products overseas, you can kind of see what the suite of products we've got available to pick from, but then localize it for NZ. So no, we don't publicize it. I don't know if anybody's heard of Bank in Australia, but they've got a really cool public roadmap that they've got. We've got nothing in that space at the moment.
Is it something new?
We haven't talked about the roadmap specifically, but we are going to start to spin up a beta group where we have about 100 to 200 users who get released a feature first, and they can get on board, give us their feedback. Does it work? Does it help with the problem that you thought it did, and what have you? And so they'll be like our first trench of getting features, but nothing like the big roadmap yet. Yeah.
When you're looking into the new market, what would you say the most important functions of a business are? You know, to like how would you hire? Do you like hire research analyst, or do you hire product, or like what would be the order of?
Yeah, that's a great question. To repeat for those online, it was like what order of roles would you release? Sorry, what order of roles would you hire for as you're launching in a new market, and what do you see as the most important? Legal, I would say is really up there, and if I'm going to be honest, was probably one of my blind sides that I definitely took for granted in other fintechs and banks and what have you before I was at Revolut. Compliance and regulation has just shown up for me in the past, and now it's not, and you've got to go and figure it out, and you've got to understand it and get into the nuts and bolts of it, and that's hard at times, and it's not best done by me at my desk. It's best done with a lawyer. So I think seeking legal support, whether that's internal, it could be external as well, highly recommend. Maybe that's more for banking though, not as much other technology, but legal nonetheless. And finance and product would be the other two. I believe if you're taking on a product manager at an early stage, you know, they're excited, they're ready to get into it, and they're going to dig into the research, they're going to be digging into the requirements. Like, they can be a bit of a catch-all to begin with as you scale the product, and then obviously you refine their role a bit more, but they can really help with that strategic play of that DVF side from the beginning as you get going. But yeah, I'd say legal, finance, and product from my learnings.
I just had a question about your roadmap. Legislation is important, but then there is also capital requirements. So as you probably know, to get into the mortgage business, you need a certain capital requirements.
Yes.
Any thoughts on what you've thought about, getting that capital so that you can get into the mortgage areas or the mortgage business lines?
I think it's really
Or overseas
hard.
markets.
Yeah.
How does it work for Revolut, like in other countries? What's going on?
Other countries, it's not as difficult as in New Zealand, from my understanding so far. It's definitely a big pain point, and it's a blocker to competition, in my opinion, at the moment. But then, in the same vein, we need some premise of it for keeping our customers safe. So it's a really touchy area. I believe there's other mechanisms we could be looking at to help ensure that we're taking the right risk approach with warehousing, sandboxes and what have you, as we help organisations start to scale. But right now, the capital requirement to get going in New Zealand is quite significant, and it would be really, really, and even honestly, even in the payment space, like be a trust model and what have you, and making sure you're not stepping into debt securities and what have you, still requires you to have very significant capital on board. So I'd say competition is low because barriers to entry are very high at the moment.
Is there capital for crypto?
No, crypto is quite
Lucky. So,
low effort.
yeah. Thank you.
Right. You can probably smell the pizza here. So we'll probably cut it there. Georgia will be around to answer more questions. Just want to say massive, massive thank you to Georgia for coming and chatting to us. Thank you to everyone watching online. We really appreciate anyone who watches the recording. If you are local in Welly online, and to literally everyone who is here in person, if your place of business where you work is keen on hosting one of the future ProductTank events, please come up and let us know. We'd love to chat with you. We'd love to bring a really great product community that's built by product people for product people to your workplace, to give the whole community a place to kind of come together and chat and learn about really cool businesses like Revolut, or other types of events that we have, like panel events and anything else that kind of comes up. So thank you to Story Park so much for hosting us again. It's been amazing. We really, really appreciate being in your space. Probably call it there.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.